awesome.
Awesome.
That was awesome.
You guys are awesome.
No,
You're awesome.
no.
You are awesome.
Sir, you are awesome. Seriously.
Awesome. Awesome. Awesome.
Everything is awesome.
Welcome to this week's edition of Everything is Awesome. I am your host, Kevin. This is the show where we sit down and talk to awesome people about awesome things. This week's guest is someone who I followed me on Twitter, and I was like, oh, let me see who this is, and because I vet all my Twitter followers. And I noticed that she played a character in Game of Thrones the musical, which, as we call them on this show, Team West Coast, Aaron, Ace, friends of ours. I was like, oh, you know what, this would be a kind of a cool conversation. It's, in a way, I kind of know this person in a very, very off-the-wall way. So like, I would love to talk to someone that's part of this musical because that's what I've been trying to square up anyway. So that's all we have for this, my intro this week for this guest. Please welcome to the show, and thank you for doing it. Hopefully I pronounced it correctly. Kacey Spivey.
Spivey, so close.
Damn, Spivey.
Ah, dang. No, I should have sent you a phonetic spelling. No, that's so close. Everyone says Spivey, but it's Spivey, like Spidey senses.
Oh my God, that's amazing. And so let me tell you, I've been, obviously I followed you back, and that's how we hooked up the interview. And I've been following, your Screen Rant, retweets that you send out, because you're a host and producer for them as well.
Yes.
And like, I was like, oh, this is going to be one of those ones where, before we started the show, I told you I have to tame it down. Like, I have to be careful where the conversations go, because this is going to be so much tangent material, I think.
About movies and television?
Yeah. And like, I mean, I think the last one I just noticed was from Kevin Smith doing Supergirl.
Yes.
And, oh God, that's like a marriage made in heaven for me.
Oh my God, so great. What's funny is I didn't know, I grew up loving movies and TV and theater and all of that, right? I grew up in a house of people who made movies. So I thought I knew what everything was until I got on board with Screen Rant, and I was like, wow, there is so much more to this world than I even knew existed. I didn't even really know about Kevin Smith until I started this job, and I'm like, okay, now I gotta watch everything he's ever made. Like, because everyone loves him so much. Oh, I get it now.
Oh my God, the phrase "I didn't even know who Kevin Smith was," I almost passed out because I live and breathe Kevin Smith.
Oh, you do.
I'm in my early 30s.
Yeah.
So. And I was introduced to Kevin Smith from my uncle when he was only 15 years older than me, and he introduced me to him probably in the mid 90s when Clerks came out, and I hated the movie. I mean, I was 10 years old, probably 11 at most when I watched it. I was like, oh, black and white movie, whatever. And it took me 2001 I think is when Jay and Silent Bob came out, and I had seen some of his other movies, but it took Jay and Silent Bob for me to go, hey, this is like all connected, like I know Jay and Bob. So I went back and rewatched it, and like Clerks became very inspirational to me. Chasing Amy is not only my favorite Kevin Smith movie, but it is my favorite movie of all time. When I want to be sad, that's the movie I watch because there's just so much emotion to it. So yeah, I am a huge Kevin Smith fan.
Because it's like, I didn't really realize, there's like the paranoia that like your kids are being marketed boys, all the boy toys and the girls toys and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And then I just realized how much I had never been expected to know or never been introduced to, like so many movies and so many, I mean, there are girls that are like into, that find their way into this world, but I don't know. I'm like, I live and breathe on this planet, and in my whole life, I've never once been like, there's never been one person that was like, you should watch. I've never had an uncle go, Kacey, you would like Clerks, like, they're like, you should watch My Little Pony, So I was like, I've been kept from this gold forever, and I have a chip on my shoulder about it now. But
we definitely live in a world now where I think it's less and less like, here's the boys and here's the girls. And as like, I have two kids. I have a boy and a girl, and I hope that they are raised to like the same things equally.
Yeah.
I'm all for and I plan on when they're 10 years old, I'm giving them permission to sit down and watch Clerks because I think it's a rite of passage, to be honest.
Yeah, that's good. You're a good father.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess there's not many people that would say I'm gonna go that filthy movie where they say a lot of dirty words. Let's go take my 10-year-old to see it. But
Listen,
I'll be that dad.
Friend's gonna show it to him anyway, so you might have to from your dad.
Yeah, exactly. So let's kind of you kind of mentioned it earlier, a little bit about your origin, but let's start with your origin. Where are you from?
I'm from Texas.
Okay.
Yeehaw.
Is that so? You said you had a family that worked in the movies. They worked in the movies. Texas doesn't seem like a big movie place.
Oh yes. Okay. So if you know anything about movies, making movies, there's this thing that they do where states will give tax incentives at any given time to promote their state. Oklahoma did this recently. They made August Osage County, and then they were like, all right, that's the end of our tax incentives. You didn't reflect Oklahoma well. Goodbye. That kind of stuff. So different states will do that periodically. Right now it's Canada. That's not a state, but Canada has huge tax incentives, and North Carolina, whatever. Texas, for a hot minute in the 90s, late 80s, had this massive tax break. So that's when they started filming Dallas. That's when they brought a ton of movies down there. And my parents happened to graduate college at the time when that was happening, and they kind of got on board. My mom more so with the movies, and then she moved into TV pretty quickly. And then my dad did more sports broadcasting, and then eventually made his own production company and worked from home. So that's kind of my reference of the world. So when people's parents are doctors or teachers, I'm like, oh, awesome. What is that like? To not be making movies.
So did you know from an early age that you wanted to be in the movie industry in some way?
Absolutely. I mean, my mom would bring my brother and I to set to be extras when we didn't have a babysitter, or we were off school or something like that. And I don't know if it was nature or nurture really, but I mean, my brother's going to be a doctor, so I don't think it was necessarily nurture. He was like, all right, screw this. I'm out. You guys are crazy. But I remember very, very early sitting in, theaters watching she was a producer on Barney and Friends, so it was a very kid friendly show, and they had a show in New York City in the City Music Hall, and I was maybe 3 years old. And I remember going to that and going yep, this is what I'm gonna do. And I don't know why, but it's just stuck with me, and I can't do anything else mentally, emotionally, or spiritually.
I think what the most unique thing about that is that Barney and Friends is what made you want to get into it.
Yeah, right.
That's such a, and for me, I don't, Barney and Friends was on at an age where I was like, right, that's stupid. I'm into Power Rangers. And so just the thought of Barney inspiring somebody, I mean,
that's funny.
It is funny, and I think as I get older, I still would never watch Barney or subject my kids to it, but I do as I get older start to respect more and more art forms and all these projects. And say, all right, well, I mean that's somebody's thing. I guess that could be inspirational. Yeah,
it's funny because Barney did their pilot or whatever, and it was kind of a flop, and they were like, all right, ba-ba-da. Then somebody smart came on board and said, okay, we're gonna hire young mom producers. And right when that happened, my mom had just had me. So she came on board, and she was part of a team of these, I mean, it was kind of crazy now that I think about it, because it's I've always thought of women at the helm of, massive TV shows and projects, as the norm and as the standard, because that is my frame of reference. And it's just so I was part of the generation of, oh, well, my kid does this, let's put that in the show. Or, hey, Kacey, watch this, or what do you think? Like, I had a weird, like, I mean, she wasn't asking me about the show, of course, but I think just being a child at that age when they were trying to make shows for that age kids was definitely part of my, like, world. And yeah, it was cool to, like, when I got a little bit older, I was reading the scripts and, all that kind of stuff, and seeing it literally go from script to screen. And my mom even wrote a couple episodes, and I watched that whole process. And so now I'm like, I do it, and it's so second nature to me. It doesn't seem like a big deal to me. Whereas when I went to school for film and TV production, people were like, had no idea what was going on. And I was like, what? Like, oh, yeah, this is a green screen.
Well, it's because I figured out, like, so became a fan of Clerks, as a high schooler. And then, eventually, like, in my mid-20s, so about 7 years ago, we'll say, is when I realized, like, I mean, if he can do Clerks, like, let's break that down. And, like, I can probably do something. And, it's been a 7-year journey of trying to figure out what that something is. But I was 25 when I realized, like, hey, I want to work in the entertainment industry. And, like, so far podcasting is kind of like my niche.
It's really, like, it's very scary when you think about it. 'Cause it's like, you're like, oh my gosh, like, it's a movie, like, ooh. Yeah. But it's very much like planning a wedding or planning an event like, really, if you want to do your own project, you actually become a producer. And you just, you're the one getting the props at 3 a.m. You're the one doing everything, and it's really stressful or whatever. I recently made my own short film, and, I would say, like, I want to, like, look back and be like, it's not that hard. I did it. You can do it. It is that hard. It is that hard. But regardless, like, you can do it, Yeah. Like, you don't. A lot of times we think our first project has to be this, like, masterpiece. And it's not going to be. It's just not. Like, I don't know. Maybe Kevin Smith made that Clerks for his first go around and it was great. But I bet he was messing around with stuff, little baby projects, a camera here and there before he did that. I mean, I would love to know if he did or not, but I bet he did. And Clerks just happened to, be a culmination of his experience plus, opportunity and the right idea. And it kind of took off. But yeah, I mean, I feel like with, like these young, tech giants coming out at like 19 years old, we're all like, I have to be a genius now. And,
Well, no, and that's something that, like, I've definitely, taken from Kevin Smith by listening to some of his podcasts and just listening to him. Like, I especially became a fan of his, like, during his An Evening With tours and stuff, and just watching them on DVD. And he's, to me, he's just an excellent storyteller altogether. Like, not necessarily a great, an excellent writer or an excellent director. He's just, when he's him and he's on the mic, whether it's for a podcast or for whatever, like, he just is an excellent storyteller and gives some awesome advice and whatnot. And I mean, one of the things that I've kind of picked up, like, is that kind of mentality of, like, well, I'm in, at the time I'm 25, this is what I'm going to do, let's see if it happens. And, like, every year something gets in the way, obviously, like life. And it's the way I look at it is it's never too late. Like, it doesn't, like, Tim Miller directed Deadpool at, I think, 50 or so. He's 57 years old. Right. So, and that was his first, like, big break in the movie industry.
Right.
So it's never, too late to do anything. And as long as you're, I guess creating, as Kevin Smith says this a lot, as long as you're doing something and being creative, like, just put it out there and see what happens. Some shit's going to fall, some shit's going to stick.
Yeah, I mean, like, even this, like, taking your resources, like, my big thing was, like, I kind of did my movie wrong because I set it in, like, Amish country, and I, like, who does, like, everybody told me, Kacey, you're crazy, and I was like, I am not, it's Amish country, it's cheap. No, you don't have those resources, so now you have to go find Amish country in Los Angeles. What are you thinking? Like, so, like this, like the podcast, like, you take you look around and you go, what are my resources? Okay, I'm going to create something within these resources. And then maybe those resources grow and I make this thing out of these resources. And like, hopefully, you get more and more resources, or you make more friends who have resources and you share and collaborate. But yeah, like doing stuff like this, like, you have a computer, you have the internet, like, go.
Yeah. No, and there's no reason not to do anything. Obviously podcasting way easier to do than making a movie. Hence the reason that's why I do it versus making a movie. But even that, like, if you in my opinion, this is someone who doesn't work in the industry, is you can find like very creative ways and inexpensive ways to at least get something made. It may not be to the level of Hollywood or mainstream Hollywood, but you can do something and, like you said, build on that and build relationships with that. And something that I actually learned very recently as I write is try to like think, I guess, as a producer and write within your budget instead of writing an Amish movie in LA. Maybe a little outside your budget.
Wrote that in school for sure. Did not write that when I was being the producer.
Yeah, and that's like, I have we have, me and my buddy, we have this like lofty project that we wrote in high school, and we're like, this is the one we're going to start with because it's going to be great from the beginning. And obviously, like 15, 20 years later, it's like, well, clearly we haven't made it because we don't have the resources to do it. Let's kind of like peel the curtain back and see what we can actually do. Yeah,
exactly. And a lot of times I think people just look for proof of ability and proof of follow through. So, your first project, because everyone literally is like, I have a script in my drawer. I have the next movie. But like, in order to trust somebody that they're going to follow through on that, you look at their body of work, and it's like, okay, like I know Clerks was like in Sundance and stuff, but like, let's take that as an example. He did it in black and white. I doubt, it might have been a creative choice, like for the storytelling, but I bet it was because they couldn't really get the high-end expensive camera that they wanted. Maybe, yep. I'm guessing.
You would be guessing correctly. It was cheaper to film on black and white than in color.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like
back then it was, I should say. Back then it was.
It was cheaper to film on black and white, so that's why he did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess if you can do something with a little bit of money and follow through with it and show people, look, I made this little 2-minute project. Then your next project, people are going to be like, oh, yo, like Kev makes stuff. Like we should get on board. I have makeup. I want to showcase my makeup stuff. I can trust that you're going to follow through on this project, because a lot of times people film stuff and they never edit it. Have you ever seen that happen?
Yeah. I've actually, we've never put it out there to the world, but yeah, I've actually done that. Have recorded a bunch of stuff and just let it sit there.
This is crap. I hate this.
Yeah.
I'm never going to put it out. Just like, you have to just not worry about being, you're not going to be Hollywood level without the Hollywood budget. So you just got to like embrace it, live in it, love it. And just like I think the YouTube experience lately is proving that if your story and your content is great, then you don't necessarily have to have the Hollywood budget to prove your ability. Like there are how much stuff do we get from our friends shared with us that's like really crappy quality, or even like a security camera caught this crazy thing happen and it's gotten 8 million views or whatever because the content is fascinating. And I think if you can do that well and do that creatively with your camera work, with whatever you have, I think people are going to go, oh, wow, okay, cool. Like, I really had a good time watching that. And I think that's the goal of entertainment in general and in the end. And then, when you're trying to make money off of it, that's when you got to, like, put the budget in.
Yeah, it's nuts that you say that, because that's literally how, after, like, eight plus years of doing podcasting, I finally looked at it of, like, let me just do it for me, do it for, I don't have to worry about making money. Let me just do what comes easy and natural to me, and that's where like you get the most creative success. Just kind of like I said, just kind of doing it, just scraping together what you can to make it work.
Yeah.
YouTube is a great example. Like God, literally YouTube stars can become TV stars and movie stars and get book deals now. So
right, exactly.
New media is a legitimate thing now.
Yes. And I mean, also tying this conversation back to why I'm here, even, like in the musical world, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's all become kind of fluid, this whole all entertainment to me is entertainment. Mm-hmm. So like if you take Aaron and Ace, so we're doing Game of Thrones the musical. Back this up about, I think 2 years, we did Lost the musical. So we took all, was it 8 seasons of Lost? Oh my gosh.
Six seasons. 6.
Wow. Oof, I'm terrible. All 6 seasons of Lost, and put it into a 3-hour parody musical. Just fun, funny, taking songs like Don't Stop Believing and going, Don't Stop Breathing when he's like drowning and stuff. Really funny, right? So Aaron came and saw that after being a huge fan of Once Upon a Time. She's found her way into this show. Now, they started, the show is, we bought our own costumes. We just showed up at this rinky-dink theater. All we had was this, I didn't do anything but act in this, but all they had was, a really funny script, which you can do on your computer, and songs that already existed rewritten, like lyrics rewritten. And we had so much fun with that show, and we had actually so much success that there was actually leftover money for the show we're doing now. Now, Erin saw that show and she said, oh my God, Steven, how do I do this? He gave her advice and gave her the knowledge and empowerment to go, really, it's mostly permission. Somebody's saying, I have faith in you that you can do it because I did it. So I give you permission for yourself to go and fly, just soar and try to figure this out. And it will not be like you think it's going to be, but it will be worth it. And she did it. And they did Once Upon a Time, the rock opera, which I believe was original music. So yes, that was hugely successful. Then they teamed up together and went, let's just do this together for Game of Thrones. And same thing, it's not people who are working on Broadway. It's like we're all, really just barely getting by in LA, just, really have, enough for a cup of coffee and maybe enough to feed our meters. And we're doing this show and we're creating stuff that's really fun, really funny. Audiences love it and it's a good time and we feel, creatively satisfied. And I believe they are probably going to be able to make back the money that they've spent on it. I don't know. I'm not the producer. But it's I think the biggest thing is getting over the fear of it failing and just going, it's going to fail. If it fails, okay, I'm cool with that. I would rather it fail and have done it than have not done it at all or not tried it, And I think the more you do it, the more confidence you get. You go, oh, I can't believe I actually pulled that off. And no, it wasn't as great as I thought it was going to be. But heck, I did it. I did that. And you can go walk around with so much pride and joy going, you know what, I'm kind of a bad MF. I'm great. I can do whatever, comes my way or whatever idea I have. I now have the spiritual empowerment to say, yes, I can figure out how to do that because I'm innovative and I can pull the resources I need and we can make it happen. So yeah, I think it's mostly fear that people have when they don't pursue their own projects.
Yeah. And I think, I sat down and talked to Ace, almost a year ago or something, and he had very similar sentiment when we talked about one of the projects I was working on. And and I'm probably stealing this from one, but failing is just success training. and that is, I mean, obviously that's a huge thing for anybody is the fear, but once you get over that, you're right. I mean, it's just, at least you did it, and that's step one.
Yeah, and you might not get over the fear, but you do it anyway. Like, you do it scared. Like, you ask, like, I mean, I'm sure you listen to interviews from directors, like, everywhere. Even, like, the huge directors go, yeah, I didn't love, like, that's why they have director's cuts, because they're like, it's still not perfect. Like, it's still not, you're always going to look and see. Do you ever listen to the Hollywood roundtables off of the Hollywood Reporter?
Every now and then, yeah.
Yeah, they had a producers roundtable for this upcoming Oscars, and you should definitely go and listen to it. It's great. But all of those producers were like, yeah, no, it's never, like, I can't rewatch those movies because all I see is problems that I had to fix, and we compromised everything and you know, and it's like, it's really nice to hear the producers talk about how it actually happened, because then you go, oh, cool. But you watch the movie as an audience member, and you're like, oh, that really, you know, affected me, or I had such a good time, or whatever, and you have no idea what kind of crazy crap they went through to get that stuff. And it's, I don't know, the joys of filmmaking, I guess.
So to kind of go back in time a little bit, and so you grew up in the business. Barney inspired you to a degree. What was like the first like, besides being an extra, you know, on Barney and other productions that your mom took you to? What was like one of the things that you kind of pursued on your own? What was the first thing that you did?
I was a rebel and I did theater. So my which is, I'll explain this. So my parents, being people in the industry, you do not want the person you love to try to be an actor. You just don't. It's not anything against them. It's just, it's a really heartbreaking road to go down to try to be an actor and be on camera. And it's just constant, you know, it's just constant rejection, and like you don't have a lot of control over what you do, and it's just a really hard path to go down. So when I knew I wanted to be in the industry, I definitely knew I wanted to be on camera, and I wanted to be in front, for sure. And my mom was like, no, absolutely not. Like, I was like, Mom, can I get an agent? Let's go. Can I audition to be one of the Barney kids? She's like, no, you're going to go to school like a normal child. You're going to have a good education, and you know, you're going to be normal. And I was really like, oh, fine. It's like crazy. And then my best friend at the time was going to do a theater camp. And so I was like, fine, I'm going to go do this theater camp with my friend. So we went to theater camp, and I think they had little auditions. They'd already cast all the roles, which I was like, what? How did they already cast all the roles? I showed up today. But they had already cast all the roles except for like this one little solo. And I auditioned for that one little solo, and I got it. And I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be in theater. I'm going to go to Broadway. La da da. I'm going to be a star. And I really latched onto theater. I mean, I did a lot of, like, I played basketball. I was a cheerleader. Like, I did a lot of things. But I really, really focused on, I ended up being like theater club president, and we competed at nationals and the Thespian Society and all of that kind of stuff. And you know, it's funny because I really was focusing on theater. And meanwhile, my dad would have these cameras in the garage, and I'd be like, hey, Dad, I'm having a sleepover. Can I make a video of us doing a music video? And he's like, yeah, sure. Just like, don't break it. Here. And so we would make music videos, and I'm sure they're out there somewhere because I would burn DVDs for everybody. My friends would come over to my house. We would play a song. I would make a music video. I would direct them. And they would go to sleep, and I would stay up and edit them together. And in the morning, I would give each of them a DVD of it. And I would do that like all through high school. And by the end of high school, you know how they have those like superlatives or whatever?
Yeah.
Mine was like most likely to be a movie director. And I was pissed because one of my other best friends was voted most likely to be an actress. And I was like, what? What? But now I look back and I'm like, oh, of course. Like, yeah, of course. I'm everyone's seeing this but me. Like, but anyways, yeah. So that's what I don't know, always creative and always wanting to be kind of behind and in charge and, kind of envisioning everything.
So when did you get to LA and pursue that side of it?
So I went to college and I was really a misfit in college. I think college is where a lot of people like find their place and like their friends for life and stuff. And I was really a hermit. And I was like, okay, I'm either going to drop out or I'm going to graduate early. So I was like, I'm not dropping out. I'm not a quitter. So I took on a bunch of hours and I studied screenwriting, which was a really niche track in Oklahoma. So I studied screenwriting and I took like 21 hours a semester all through like summer and everything. And I graduated in 3 years. And yeah, and yeah, that was weird. And on my last spring break in college, because obviously I don't have friends, I take a trip out to Los Angeles and I asked my one teacher who had been to LA, who had worked in Los Angeles, I said, who do you know that I could, get coffee with in Los Angeles? And he said, well, I have my old writing manager. The end. And I said, great. So I take this trip out to LA and I meet with as many people for coffee as I could possibly find. And this one writing manager ended up, I had this coffee with him and he's like in this like really dusty old office and he's like, you need to be at an agency. We need to get you into the mailroom at an agency. And I was like, yeah, sure do. What is that? Okay, great. Let's do it. So he set me up with this meeting at the end of the week at this talent agency, which if you don't know, this talent agencies package pretty much every deal that gets done in Hollywood. So they'll represent not just actors, they'll represent the directors, the writers, all of the production staff, and they'll try to staff their entire the movie with everyone that is represented by their agency so that they get cuts on everybody. That's kind of how it works.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so at the end of the week I had this like interview for the mailroom at this agency and they were like, sure, when can you start? And I was like, I graduate in a month, I'll be back. And they're like, okay, great, let us know. And so I like packed up my Honda and like drove out. I walked the stage, packed my Honda, drove out to Los Angeles with my dad and started working in the mailroom. And I actually worked in like as an assistant for a couple of years. I worked at like Warner Brothers. I worked for The Amazing Race. I was an executive assistant. It was, crazy. So I've kind of been, on the other side. And then while I was doing that, I would sneak out on lunch breaks and go to auditions and then, finish my day job at 7 and run to the theater at night and do a show and, kind of try to do it all. But I finally, now I have a job where I do everything at once. So I don't have to like work 24/7, which is great. So my job now, I am the production staff and the talent. And and now I just do that and then do theater on the side and, do some hosting and stuff. So that's now I'm working on I finished the short film that I did about 6 months ago, I think. And I went to a festival and I was like, all right, I need a break from doing production for a second. And now I've just written a series, like a web series. And we might get financing for it. So I might not have to pay for it.
That's awesome.
which is great, but that means I have to wait for the person with the money to say,
Yeah.
okay, go. So it's kind of in that like weird, like, oh, this could be actually have like money behind it and we could afford things, but like now the catch is we have to wait like for permission to do so. So I thought I would be filming now, but it looks like that's going to be delayed for a couple months. But yeah, that's kind of the, I don't know if I answered the question at all. Did I
I
answer?
I forget the question. It's funny because it's not often that I get a guest that like I love to talk. It's not often that I get a guest that also loves to talk. I feel like the last one I had was actually Ace. So
Me and Ace are very similar in that way.
yeah, I was just sitting here thinking, I was like, man, she's like one of I think 4 guests I've had, including Ace, that have like out talked me.
I'm sorry, I'll be
No,
boring.
it's fine. This episode's all about you. Everyone knows my story already. Hey there, super friends. It's Kev. I'm just going to interrupt this show for a minute or two so I can do some housekeeping. If you want to help support this show, you can do it in several different ways. One of those ways, I'll read your name on air right here, not just your name, but your whole review, by leaving a 5-star review, or any review, really. I'll read all of them. But hopefully you're kind enough to leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. Just go to our iTunes page, subscribe to the page, that way you don't miss an episode, and of course leave that 5-star text review. iTunes Math does a lot of good things that make more people listen to the show, and that means more cool things happen to Everything Is Awesome. Another way that you can support is word of mouth recommendations. Just tell friends to listen to Everything Is Awesome. Put it on when you're carpooling together on your way to work or on your way to Comic-Con or whatever. And the final way, this one may cost you a little bit of money, but that's okay. If you go to patreon.com/thatentertains, the other ways you help support us are just as good, free for nothing, help us. But this one, if you pledge some money to us, we'll give you some more stuff in return. You know, and by we I mean Jason Ashley from Too Cool for Tabletop and I, we like to say $12 a year, bro. $1 a month is really nothing to you. You skip anything for one day, and that's more than $1. And that helps make our dreams come true, really, if I'm going to be honest. That's entertainment, which is what funds this podcast, is running a Patreon, patreon.com/thatentertains. And I mean, really, honestly, if we could hit $25 a month of support, that would be wonderful. It means bills are covered for us, and that's really all I want at the end of the day. And everything else is just icing on the cake. It means we get to do more upgrades, it means we get to create more content, and a lot of the stuff that we want to do is at least early access for you guys that pledge to us on patreon.com/thatentertains, or we'll even do some exclusive content. We're working on some things now that we're thinking of for exclusive content that we'll do randomly throughout the year and whatnot. So again, if you want to help support this podcast, go to patreon.com/thatentertains. Not just supporting this podcast, but you're supporting That's Entertainment, which means that even more content besides this podcast will come at you. We're talking skits, sketches, web series, movies, a whole ton of content that we have that we want to do that will eventually get done anyway, but with your help we can get it done sooner. If you don't want to spend any cash, I completely get it. I understand it. iTunes reviews help us tremendously, as well as word of mouth recommendations. Finally, you can also go to the contact page on awesomepodcast.com and subscribe to our newsletter. We're going to start sending out weekly reminders of the things that we've posted throughout the week, as well as spotlights on the guests that we've had on our podcasts. And we're also going to be sending out reminders or notifications about new things that we're working on, events that we're going to be doing, and whatnot. So just another place to get some more detailed information. We're going to try to make it unique enough for you so that it's worth us invading your inbox. This has been more than a minute or two. So let's get back to the conversation. So yeah, but I mean, that sounds like the catch-22 of like finally getting people to help pay for your stuff is that you lose a certain amount of control.
Yeah, it's always the case. It's funny because when I was working at Warner Brothers, I was watching my bosses go through this, and I was like, you know, I like walked into the lot like la da da. This is where all the magic happens. Movie making is easy, la la la. And then like, you know, the more money you get like you said, the less control you have, and it was really hard to watch because my bosses kind of go through the creative ringer of anyone who has money attached to it wants a say, and they want creative input, and that's all great, but sometimes you just gotta let the film, like Netflix. What Netflix is doing now, from what I hear on the street, is they just let, like HBO too. They go, you're a great filmmaker, or you're a great producer, go. Here's money, go. And their projects turn out fantastically because they have so much creative freedom. Now they don't have as much money, I also hear, as like the studios will give. But yeah, I do think it's true that the more money you get, the harder it is to stay true to your artistic vision.
Well, yeah, I mean, Netflix, they don't show that they don't have a lot of money because all their originals are great. Like, there's I think maybe one original I watched that I was like, I could do without this. But like, I mean, Stranger Things, for example, which is one that I hopped onto late. Yeah, Erin had to like force me. She's like, yeah, you should go watch it. Like, it's genius. You're busy watching The Flash. Go watch Stranger Things.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not a show that shows that it's not working with as much money as, say, a Hollywood movie. Like, it looks just as good as like, a genre, 80s film, done today, but better because you let the creators, you can totally tell they let the creators, stick to their vision.
Yeah. And I think it's, again, I'm talking out of my league, but I think it's also because the money is focused on the art of things, and I think a lot of times once you get into the stratosphere of millions of dollars, like, well, you got an actor who wants a private jet to the play, or you got the really money that's being spent. I don't know. I'm not a top producer in that area, but that's kind of what I hear is like, that's how those movies kind of get really out of budget, is when everyone goes, oh, there's so much money to be had. We're going to have steak for dinner every night. And like, with the smaller budgets, you really do have to focus it on what is in the frame. Are we going to buy steak for everybody, or are we going to get, the right kino? Like,
well, and that's like when you see indie projects versus mainstream projects, I mean, that all shows like, whether you like, we'll take Tusk for instance, one of the new Kev Smith movies. Like, that's a movie that's has a take. But it's definitely a movie that, it doesn't have a lot of money to play with, and you can tell, like, compared to, say, Zack and Miri or something like that had a lot more money to play with, like, you can tell that the studio doesn't get involved because they let Kev be Kev.
Right, exactly. And I hope that those models with HBO and Netflix, like, taking off, even, I don't know about Amazon, but it seems like they might be doing that a little bit, but I think hopefully the executives of the world start going, oh, let's put the power back. Let's just find really good artists and good storytellers and just empower them and get our hands out of this pot, hopefully.
Yeah. And I actually had a conversation earlier today with somebody where we were talking about, like, old Hollywood. Basically, Hollywood is still kind of like old Hollywood. It's still a lot of baby boomers and Gen Xers, which I guess I'm kind of a Gen Xer. I'm right on that cusp. I'm not sure. But, there's a lot of, like, older people that are still running things, and they're afraid to do things or to take things seriously. The guest I was talking to earlier, we were talking about kind of like nerdom and like Dungeons and Dragons, and how a show like Big Bang Theory doesn't really depict it in a way that is favorable to us geeks. It's just like they're geeky guys that wear glasses and sit around and play Dungeons and Dragons, and this is how it goes, versus something like Community, where it's done true to fashion. Stranger Things, same thing. The way that opens is them playing D&D, and it's really true to heart. And I think as like Hollywood ages out and you get some more of these millennials in there running things, I think we're going to see, I think we're going to see that. I think we're going to see it being given back to the creator to show their vision.
Yeah. And I think that's across the board, is like, also filmmaking in general became way more accessible to just grassroots in general. Like, so now we have a generation of people who grew up with at least a home video camera. They probably tried to make something, probably if they're interested in movies. They probably filmed something on their iPhone once. Who knows? Like, and I feel like the past generation is more, maybe I don't know, there's a generalization, and I'm talking about being generalization, so whatever, I'm being ironic. I feel like they're more business minded, and they're more about the money, and have less experience actually in the field of making movies and being creative and writing. Whereas this generation, I think even if you are more business, you might have a higher likelihood of having dabbled in something creative in your life that had to do with filmmaking if you're trying to be in the movie industry, So hopefully there's more of a sensibility of art within the business world of it. And that too, I think is why we're getting more diverse stories being told, is because now, like they talk about women filmmaking, and the very practical reason why a lot of women are not DPs or directors is because, in the past generation, the cameras are heavy, and you can't really, like, if you can't carry the camera, you can't be the assistant camera, and then you can't learn, like, a very practical reason why women aren't carrying around cameras. But, like, because now it's so accessible, or education, maybe you grew up in a part of America that didn't have a program that had a camera in it or whatever, but now that it's accessible to more people, I think we're getting more people with talent that have had access to this medium. So they've been able to develop their skill and develop their storytelling talent. And now they're like, you put some money into them and they can create these amazing perspectives on art. And it's great. And I hope it continues.
Yeah, I mean, I have a friend who's like huge, and I mean, not that I'm not, I'm not as vocal about it, but he's like huge into like, hey, like more women filmmakers, more women heroes and stuff like that. And I mean, it's again, I think it's as we get rid of old Hollywood, a generation that's coming up is a way more accepting generation. And I think we're going to get more and more of, I think everything's going to get better in the next, decade or so. Everything's just going to be more diverse, more, hopefully, more creator controlled, where we're just getting that high quality content that, we do. And I feel like TV to a degree, maybe not network TV, but I feel like AMC, is a station that, at least from a viewer standpoint, seems like a station that kind of like lets the creators have some say in what's actually going to happen, because I for the most part, all their content is just as good as some of the Netflix stuff that's out there.
Yeah, I mean, you said you got a friend who's like really into the all female empowerment thing. I mean, like, I'm curious to what your perspective on it is.
My own perspective, I'm 100% for it. Like, I think that, obviously there is a wage gap that needs to be corrected, but I don't think saying, you're a girl, you shouldn't be doing this is a good thing, because whether you're a podcaster or a filmmaker or an author or whatever you do to tell your story, the more people that are doing it, it just betters the industry, I think.
Yeah.
So
as a male, do you? I'm turning the interview around because I'm a female director or whatever. Do you connect to projects like Jessica Jones or something like that? Like, Do you feel alienated by those shows, or do you feel like you can watch Captain Marvel and have a good time as
Oh,
well?
yes, a great time. And it's probably like Jessica Jones I loved. It was probably like after Luke Cage, my favorite Marvel thing on Netflix. Like it goes Daredevil season 1, Luke Cage, and I think Jessica Jones. And I don't say that it's the list that I have. It's hard to create because it's all so good. But
Yeah.
Jessica Jones I loved it. Loved Kristen Ritter as the character, and I can connect to it. Like it's obviously probably not in the same way that say you or other females can connect to it, but like I sit there and watch that and say, like, how cool would it be to be Jessica Jones?
Yeah.
Like that's or even like how cool. I mean, obviously we have to see the movie first, but how cool is it to be Captain Marvel, or how cool is it to be Wonder Woman?
Right.
And honestly, like more so than Superman. Like I'm not a huge fan of Superman.
Ah.
He's invincible for the most part. He's allergic to a rock. But you have these other great heroes like Wonder Woman, like Jessica Jones, like Captain Marvel that have like an actual character to them. If I'm being honest.
Yeah.
And I mean the only thing I would say that's like that beats all those out is Batman, because it's Batman. But like I would be totally cool like when they were talking about recasting Batman and they're just saying, oh, like let's get a black guy to play Batman. Like I'm cool. Like do that. You know what? Make Make Bruce Wayne a girl. Like if there's a good take, who cares?
Yeah.
Like all that talk about Doctor Who and Tilda. Her being like the favorite. Like that's great. I love it. Like why not?
Right. She'd be great.
Yeah. I give me anything to, and especially like, if you take any of these properties that we specifically Batman and Doctor Who and some like Superman, like these properties that have been around forever, James Bond, like if you can find a way to like make it interesting in some way, and like obviously putting a female as a lead to any of those franchises would be a different take. And I don't think, I mean, obviously, financially, I don't think it worked out for Ghostbusters, but
I don't think that was a script problem. Did you watch it?
I did, and you know what? It wasn't as good as the original, but it was. I enjoyed it. Like I sat there and I watched it, and I said, "Hey, this is a take," and like I'm totally glad that this exists, so that like my daughter can watch Ghostbusters one day and like see an all-girl team.
Yeah, I know. I was watching it on an airplane, and I was like, oh, I want this so badly to be so good. And I think it was a story. I think it was a story problem because I'm sitting here right now and I can't tell you what it was about. Like I can't. I don't even remember.
So the problem with that, I think, is like I can't tell you any of the. Holtzman. That's the only character I can tell you.
Kate McKinnon.
Yes.
Yeah, she's great. Oh my gosh, everything she does now.
Yep. And everything she touches is pure gold. And she's one of my favorite, like her and Kristen Wiig, like more like another thing that like is usually male dominated is comedies. And I think we're starting to see more and more female driven comedies with like Kristen Wiig and Melissa McCarthy and now no, not Holtzman, that's not her real name. Kate McKinnon. Yeah. Like we're seeing all these, again, I'm not as vocal about it because, I'm just not that guy. Right. But 100% like more of it, more people doing it. Like it doesn't hurt anybody. Like it betters the whole industry.
That's great. I think that's the biggest fear is that like if it's about a woman, a man won't watch it, but if it's about a man, a woman will watch it with her man or whatever. Like that's kind of, I think, the misconception. But like, did you watch anything like Bridesmaids or anything?
Yeah, and that was funny. It's great. One of the best movies I've seen.
Yeah. Okay. See that I love hearing that because that's what I hear is like guys got like humor. I think comedy is universal. Well, in a way. I mean, you have a sense of like you have your own sense of humor, but it's kind of, gender and colorblind, I think. So whatever your sense of humor is, that's your sense of humor. And like, I think you can laugh at anyone. If it's a good project, it's a good project. Like no matter what it's about,
Yes, 100%. It's I don't know. again, I think that's something that eventually will. Again, I think we're in a generation of people that are coming up that are way more accepting, way more, inclusive and diverse than what we currently have. And I think that's starting to show. I think it's starting to bleed through.
I hope so.
So before we end the show, and to kind of like go back to the actual interview, see, we went on a very long tangent. That's what happens on this show.
Right.
So what hooked you up to like Lost the Musical and Game of Thrones? I'm assuming because you were in Lost the Musical, Game of Thrones the musical was just an easy kind of connection.
Yeah, in the bag. No, well, Lost the Musical. I just saw an audition notice, and I was kind of in a phase of just auditioning for like literally anything I could get my hands on, and I was doing all these really terrible projects, and I was like, this is so bad. And then I saw the audition for Lost the Musical, and I was like, oh, that sounds like fun. That sounds great. Two things I love put together. And I was fortunate to play Claire, the Australian pregnant girl. Yeah, so I'm pregnant in both shows.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So we did that, and we had a great time doing it. And then they've been saying they wanted to do another project, but they wouldn't tell us what it was. And then when they announced Game of Thrones, it was actually scarier because they did open up the auditions. They were like, you guys can come audition. Like, we're like, oh, okay, great.
It's
cool.
Not in the bag, but
not in the bag. You're not guaranteed. If we find people better than you schmucks, then we'll definitely cast them. We just have to deal with you people. So I was actually very nervous for the audition, and this round they double cast, which is smart because actors in LA tend to book things and have family emergencies and whatever, and then you're screwed for your show. So they double cast, and I was going to be given a callback. First, I was called for Cersei, and I read the sides, and it didn't really fit. And then in the room, they gave me, I think Aaron or Ace, I don't remember. They gave me Daenerys, and I went out in the hall. I read it. I was like, oh yeah, this is it. I came back in and did the scene, and it was great. Like, it felt right. And then I left the audition. I was like, got it, nailed it, in the bag. I'm great. And then I got a call, and they were like, so can you come for a callback? And I was like, yes, yep. I come for a callback. Yep, can do that for sure. That's what happens when my ego gets too big. And then, one thing led to another, and I ended up double casting the role. So it was not like easy in the bag, and I'm just like really, really grateful. This is actually the first original, like, we have a soundtrack with original music, and thanks to, Aaron and Ace, and it's really cool, and I'm on the freaking cast album, and it's like, oh, awesome, like, random dream come true, being in the original cast of something that has a soundtrack and stuff. And yeah, it's like one of my favorite characters I've ever played, because she's one of my favorite characters on TV in general, just Daenerys, because it's like, she's, oh my god, just incredible as a character, and her arc and her story. And I actually get to experience that whole transition during the show of being, sold into slavery, and then coming out in the end, brave and courageous, and, the mother of dragons. I hope I don't spoil anything, but.
Well, so it's funny because you're sitting here and I'm like, please don't go too far, because I literally just started watching Game of Thrones probably about 6 months ago.
I know. Where are you? Oh, did I ruin it for you?
No. I'm in season. Well, not yet. I'm in season 2 still, and I haven't gone back. I actually stopped watching it a couple. My uncle passed away in November, so I stopped watching it then, and just slowly of getting back into like a normal life of doing podcasting and whatnot still. So that I'm eventually going to pick it up. The problem with that is that there's too much good TV. Like, I'm a huge nerd when it comes to like the CW Berlanti verse. Oh, I love it.
Right.
So I have to like find time to sit there and binge HBO Game of Thrones. But you didn't spoil anything.
It's not like you can cook and watch it like at the same time, like you would like Jimmy Fallon or something. Like, you have to sit there and pay attention. So it actually is a time suck.
Yeah, and because and especially Game of Thrones, like my buddy for years told me, gotta watch it. And I was like, all right, I'll watch the first episode. And I fell asleep during it. I was like, it's not my thing. Like, you remember the movie with all the walking and the trees that walked? Like, I don't like this setting. Like, it's not my thing.
Right.
So it's very similar. More talking, give him that. Not as much walking, but still not my thing. It took me 3 additional viewings of the pilot to finally power through it and make through it, and then get to episode 2, and then episode 3 is finally what sold me, and I was like, all right, I'm a fan of this show.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is. I'm actually like kind of jealous that I'm on the East Coast and I'm not out there to like be able to go and watch the musical, because it seems like a lot of fun. Once Upon a Time, the musical was fun, and I didn't even know about Lost the musical until they on their podcast interviewed, I guess, Steve and Steve.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, missed out on that, and I eventually I'm sure I can go buy it somewhere, but
watch Lost online, FYI.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Whisper that.
I don't know if that's true or not.
Okay. Well, we'll see if it. Maybe we'll edit that out. Anyway, probably not. It'll probably stay in. So, and real quick, because I do want to wrap up, and thank you for your time, by the way.
Yeah.
But so Screen Rant, like, how did that come about?
I was story producing for Nike, like the shoes. We were doing like campaigns for like whatever, like advertising campaigns and stuff. And I just came across this opportunity. It said it was like a job that doesn't exist anywhere else, editor and producer. And I was like, okay. So I looked at it and it was like host, editor, producer. And I was like, great. That's the first time I've ever seen all of my, niche skill sets all in one. So I literally just saw the call out, whatever, and not ad, but you know what I mean? Like the job breakdown or whatever. And I had been doing, I am a part of this comedy group called TMI Hollywood instead of TMZ. So it's like a comedy sketch thing with a theme of like celebrity news, making fun of pop celebrity culture and the vapidness of it. And I 6 months prior had pitched to them the idea of doing a like e-news reporter spoof. So what I would do, I bought this little green screen in my room, and I edited together this fake stand-up version of a e-news reporter where I would do like 5 stories and tell basically a one-line joke about a news story, so like I would edit it together and it would go in the show. And I made enough of those and submitted those to Screen Rant, and they were like, I was like, I really love movies. I can actually be serious. Like, I'm not just a joke, but like, here's like kind of what you're looking for. And they were like, great. Yeah, come on board. And they only had one guy doing it. And then they were looking to expand into about 5 hosts. And so they took me on as the first new host. So I was like, I guess first girl, but second host. And I've been doing it for... Shoot, how long has it been? I don't know. I don't remember. Several months.
That's either a sign of things are going well or you're just really exhausted.
Well, things are going really well. It's like a dream job for me. It really is. I love it. I get to talk about I get to talk about what I love to talk about and all day, and my favorite part is, doing the Twitter thing is like, I found this community of people who also love movies and, talking with them on Twitter and getting their opinion and doing little polls and like seeing what people think. And I love that. And, it allows me the freedom too, to do things like Game of Thrones musical and my own projects. And it's just great. So I'm hoping this clip gets into my boss so that they keep on.
I love it so much. Please keep me.
Please keep me on.
All right. So before I let you go, why don't you throw out a couple plugs where people can find you and what you're doing and whatnot?
Sure. Oh, do you want me to?
Yes.
Oh, great. Okay, you don't know. No, I'm just-
No, as I said, I don't prepare.
So Game of Thrones the musical, which we are plugging obviously, is gotthemusical.com. Gotthemusical.com. You can go on and buy tickets. I am performing Saturday and Sunday nights, so that's when you will see me. Friday and Saturday mornings, you will see lovely Mandy, who is the other Daenerys. You can follow me at Hey Case, so it's HEY_Case, KACE, on Twitter. I'm on Instagram, but I don't really like pictures, so whatever. Just find me on Twitter. And then screenrant.com for all your movie news. And what else? That's it. Yeah, I think that's it.
That's when I got your follow, I was like, works for Screen Rant. This is awesome. I was like, he's my go-to.
I tend to I follow all the people who like all of the Screen Rant stuff and the Game of Thrones stuff because I want to see what they like and what they're posting, and I want to it's really cool because they post and then I see stuff and it's awesome. So yeah, I'm glad I followed you.
Yeah, and so am I because I got to I love conversation, obviously.
Yeah,
and,
me too.
And that's what the show's about, and love hanging out. And this one was great because it was I think the audience got a brand new conversation. I don't think I said one thing that I've ever said in another episode before. So
good.
So all right, thank you for being on the show, Kacey. It was a pleasure talking with you.
Thanks for having me.
You can find me on Twitter at ThatNerdyKev. You can find this show on Twitter at RealAwesomePod. And, of course, we are part of the Core Temp Arts Podcast Network at CoreTempArts.com. Check out all the great shows there. For Everything is Awesome, I'm Kev, right here on AwesomePodcast.com. We've been awesome.
Everything is Awesome is part of Core Temp Arts, a podcast network featuring pop culture, TV, movie, and geek podcasts. Check out some of our other shows, like TV Ate My Brain, Let's Chat with Revelant Friends, and Podstalgic at CoreTempArts.com.